We're getting closer and closer to the June 5th primary. And we're joined this morning by someone that many of you know. It is State Auditor Jim Zeigler. And Jim, good morning to you, sir.
Well, good morning, and it's good to be back home.
Yeah, you were just here last week, right, for your dad's celebration?
That's right. We had a celebration of the life of my father, who for 20 years was mayor of Oak Grove, Alabama, that thriving metropolis on Highway 280. It had a wonderful little remembrance that they have every year there in the town of Oak Grove.
Talk just a second about your dad.
Dad lived to age 98 years and 11 months and stayed active until he had a little fall and broke his neck at age 96.
Oh, wow.
But he was the mayor out there and turned that little town into a very good community for people, for families and seniors and young families, and he had a strong work ethic, and he could get things done for his people, and I hope I've inherited some of that.
Talk a little bit about what's going on in your office as we head toward the primary in just a few weeks.
Well, I am on the ballot on Tuesday, June 5th, and that's less than 3 weeks away. And I'm up for re-election, and some of the folks in Montgomery are not for me, as you know, and I have exposed a lot of things, investigated a lot of things because it needed it. And that doesn't sit well with everybody down there. And so I'm having to really fight. I've got some strong opponents. They're good speakers. They're out working, and I'm going to have to earn this re-election.
That's how you want it, right?
Well, absolutely. We are better off when there is competition for these offices.
Now, several weeks ago, you were here in town and saw it on other avenues of media as well about the Montgomery, the State House there, or whatever you call it. They're kind of moving you out a little bit.
Well, they are. The Legislative Council has evicted my auditors from their offices in the Alabama State House. They have been there since 2007.
Why?
The eviction notice said that they needed those offices for legislative purposes. Now, that's kind of odd because the legislature is through and they don't come back until March of 2019. So what legislative purposes there would be in the interim, your guess is as good as mine. And it was strange. It told us we couldn't stay there anymore, my auditors, but it didn't say anything about where we could go. So my auditors are essentially homeless at the moment.
Well, maybe some mobile homes available somewhere.
Well, a gentleman saw it on the news that we'd been put out, and he called and volunteered to donate a 1971 house trailer and said we could put it on the south lawn of the state capitol and run an extension cord inside. Now, that's a heck of a note, but it just shows that I don't have the support of the establishment in Montgomery.
As an elected official, you know, that's got to bother you and your supporters.
Well, I think they've helped me politically in the election. I think it's backfired on them. And we will eventually find a place to put our auditors, and we'll work somewhere, but it's just a botheration and the timing of it to cause this distraction when I'm in the midst of re-election campaign.
And this is not the first time they've kind of jabbed your office either.
Well, it's been a constant battle. The first two Robert Bentley budgets that I had to work under cut my office 28.5% on the budget and cut my staff in half.
I couldn't live with that.
Well, we scrounged every dollar and saved every dollar, and we are current on the audits. But by the skin of our teeth, we're doing the job with 50% of the staff and 50% of the money that previous auditors had.
What has been accomplished that you're most proud of during your tenure?
Unfortunately, It was the ethics complaint. I filed the initial ethics complaint against Governor Robert Bentley. And it took a year for the investigation, and when the Ethics Commission found him in violation, 5 days later he resigned. And
you didn't let that go. I mean, you stayed on that.
I had to. It could have gotten swept under the rug. He was governor and I wasn't. And but he violated his oath of office and the Constitution, and he needed to go. And the good thing about that is the system worked. Somebody even as powerful as a governor, if they violate the Constitution and their oath of office, the system can put them out. I just hope it doesn't happen again in our lifetime.
Are we slowly recovering from that embarrassment?
We very quickly recovered from it. Since the new governor came in, just as a personal example, in the first 2 months that the new governor was in, I was inside the governor's office working with her staff on different issues 6 different times.
You had never been in Bentley's?
I'd never been in the Bentley government office. He didn't want to cooperate with me or anybody else except his little clique.
Wow. You accomplished through your office some audits, and you've gone the extra mile to say, hey, we got to be accountable for this.
We need accountability very badly, and we hadn't had that in Montgomery. Things were just let go. It just slid by. And I question everything that comes by. And I feel like that's my job, and that's my calling, and it does not win me any popularity contest in Montgomery.
You're not one of the good old boys then?
No, I'm not.
You spoke of Governor Ivey a few moments ago, and I had the privilege of meeting her last week when she was here in Silicon. Seemed like such a gracious lady, and a blockbuster suggestion came out yesterday from a former senator, I think, and basically accusing Governor Ivey of being gay.
What the statement said that I saw was that this legislator from Birmingham, Patricia Todd, who is the only openly gay member of the Alabama legislature and has been for 12 years, that she's heard for years that Governor Ivey was gay, and she wished somebody would out her. That's what I saw that she said.
That was a quote.
And she didn't put forth any evidence. She just said she had heard it for years. So I still hadn't seen, I've never seen any evidence of that. I know she's been married twice, and I think one of her husbands died, so she's technically a widow. And I haven't seen any evidence.
Well, it's political season.
It is. There's 2 weeks and 5 days to an election, so strange things can come out.
Now, we're talking with Jim Zeigler. Jim's from Sylacauga, and family ties here, and he is running for re-election state auditor in the June 5th Republican primary. Why should people go to the polls and vote for you? Are people going to vote on June 5th?
I'm a little worried about the turnout. The U.S. Senate special election last December was so contentious and negative and cantankerous that a lot of people just got burned out on politics. 2017 was supposed to be a political off year, but because of that Senate special election, it wasn't. It was almost the whole year. And people are still worn out on politics, but between the governor's race and the local races, you've got an open seat for probate judge in Talladega County, just as an example. And I hope the people will go out and vote. And if the people want a state auditor who will be a watchman against mismanagement and waste and corruption, they should vote for Jim Zeigler. If they don't want that, then they should vote for one of the others.
Oftentimes, the term is used, experience counts. That can be a good way and not so good way, but in your experience, you have begun to kind of right the ship a little bit as far as what goes on with our audits and stuff like that, and knowing where everything is at. You know, wasn't but last week, what was it? Former Governor Lurleen Wallace's picture had gone missing.
And the sad thing was last week was the 50th anniversary of Governor Lurleen Wallace's death in office. Mm-hmm. It's not often that a sitting governor dies. She did die in office 50 years ago. And I had my staff find out, well, what's going to be done as far as a commemoration of that. And they came back and reported to me, nothing. The Alabama Historical Commission and the state are just going to ignore the 50th anniversary of Lurleen Wallace's death in the governor's office. And so it took my assistant and I about 10 seconds to decide that's unacceptable. I'll sponsor it. And we went to work, and in a week's time, we put together a very nice commemoration for Governor Lurleen Wallace. Had some of the family there and friends and the media right in the Capitol Rotunda where the marble statue, the Sylacauga marble statue of Governor Lurleen Wallace is. And it just was not right that that was going to pass with nothing being done.
Why was her picture removed?
To put up Robert Bentley's picture prematurely. See, normally the governor is out and the next governor has the picture painted of his predecessor and put it up. Well, Robert Bentley and his senior staff assistant decided that they were going to go ahead toward the end of his first term. He'd been reelected to a second term and put his up. And so they pulled down Lurleen Wallace's and George Wallace's and moved them down the floor and 4/5 of the way down the hall off the tour guide route, interestingly, and put up Robert Bentley's portrait. And it's just not right, and I've been trying for 3 years to get Lurleen and George's put back up in the rotunda. The legislature had weighed in 1993 with mandated that the Wallace portraits, as the first female governor and the only 4-term governor, remain in the rotunda in perpetuity. Now, I don't know if the Bentley administration did not know what perpetuity meant. Of course, in his 50-year marriage that he ended, he didn't know what perpetuity meant, and they took Lurleen's down and put up Robert Bentley's, and I'm against it.
Finally, this morning, State Auditor Jim Zeigler is our guest this morning. He's running for re-election in the June 5th primary, Republican primary, and you vote in one of the two.
That's right. There's no split ticket voting in the primary. On June 5th, when you go in, the first thing you have to do is decide if you're going to vote in the Republican primary or the Democrat primary. And I'm running in the Republican primary. Now, it's just the opposite. In November, in the general election, you can split the ticket all you want. But this is merely a party primary to nominate the nominees of the Democrat and Republican parties.
This is a statewide office, and this is a statewide broadcast. And in your home area, let's talk about your home area just for a moment. Talladega, Coosa, and Clay counties, areas like that. What have you brought to the table for this local area as far as protecting them from the wolves that can howl out of Montgomery?
The authority of my office, the State Auditor's office, does not extend to counties and cities. So when there's been a county and city issue that reported to me, we've taken the time to try to figure out what the problem is and what could be done to fix it, and just offer some guidance to the local citizens who have a problem. And that's happened a number of times. In this area of basically the Coosa Valley area, many of the voters remember my father, and I have benefited greatly by people that saw what he did as the mayor and as the chairman of the East Alabama Regional Planning Commission. And I'll take that support and just hope that I can be half as good a state auditor as he was a public servant.
Well, good luck in the primary coming up, and we appreciate you joining us this morning. And I don't have a mobile home, but I got a feeling you'll end up okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jimmy Dale.
State Auditor Jim Zeigler, our guest this morning on Daybreak. Don't forget, polls open at 7 o'clock on June 5th, remain open until 7 p.m. We got more Daybreak coming up right after this.